I'm Kim Ogg, Harris County District Attorney. Thank you for joining us. I'm joined by my staff, David Mitchum, First Assistant, Ruben Perez, Special Crimes Bureau Chief, and Stuart Talashay, Public Corruption Division Prosecutor. Today, a grand jury indicted 3 individuals who sought to illegally influence the March 2020 primary elections and ultimately the general election held last month. Fortunately, the 2 schemes that are the source of today's indictment failed. They were intended to change and affect the outcomes in 2 Texas House of Representatives local districts during the 2020 election cycle. The impacted districts were House District 132, formerly represented by State Rep. Gina Kalani, and House District 142, then and currently represented by State Representative Harold Dutton. And I want to start by saying that our democracy depends on keeping our elected officials safe from coercion and our elections free from illegal manipulation. The individuals indicted today crossed the line from dirty politics to criminal behavior, and they will pay the price for that. Democratic political consultant Damian Jones was indicted today for coercion of a public servant and false caller ID information for an anonymous threat that he texted to then State Representative Gina Kalani on December 2nd, just days before the 2020 election filing deadline. The texted threat was intended to coerce Representative Kalani into resigning and not running for re-election, which then would have opened up that House district. But instead of resigning, then Representative Kalani contacted the Texas Rangers, who, along with our Public Corruption Division, investigated the case. As a result of the evidence uncovered by the Rangers and our prosecutors, Damian Jones is charged with coercion of a public servant and false caller ID, punishable by as much as 1 year in the Harris County Jail and up to a $4,000 fine, or both. Just days later, a second scheme intended to impact the election in House District 142 unfolded when a person using a false name, Natasha Ruiz, filed for election in House District 142 against longtime incumbent Harold Dutton. Natasha Ruiz does exist. She is a real person, but the name Natasha Ruiz is false. Her actual name is Natasha Denning. Denning did not act alone. In fact, she conspired with the third person charged today by our grand jury, Richard Bonton, former Democratic candidate in House District 142 and actual candidate in House District 142 in the March 2020 primary. The intent was to defraud the voters in House District 142. The pair's MO was to manipulate the voters of House District 142 into supporting a Latino candidate to dilute the incumbent Harold Dutton's voter base. The district has a strong and growing Latino population. Dutton is an African American. Deming is an African American. Bonton is an African American. Denning ran under the false name Ruiz, indicating to the public and giving them the impression that she was a Latino candidate. Richard Bonton filed numerous election documents on behalf of Natasha Ruiz, intentionally circumventing laws designed to ensure that voters have legitimate candidates to choose from, and intentionally obscuring his own involvement in putting up a straw candidate. With the scheme to elevate, while the scheme to elevate his own electoral chances at a win failed, Bonton and Deming did in fact impact the election, causing a runoff between an unrelated candidate, Jerry Davis, and incumbent Harold Dutton. and we know that the results of the general election was that Harold Dutton prevailed. The result for Richard Bonton is that he now stands charged with election fraud, conspiracy to tamper with governmental records, and actually tampering with the governmental records. This is one of the examples. It is a campaign treasurer's report which must be filed before the candidate themselves can enter the race. The information contained in these documents is false and was intended to defraud the victims in this case, who are the voters of House District 142. For her role, Natasha Deming is charged with 2 counts of tampering with a governmental record, both state jail felonies, and 3 Class A misdemeanors: perjury, election fraud, and conspiracy to commit tampering with a governmental record. It's pretty simple. Those who have the responsibility and run for the job of making our laws must follow our laws. The public's right to free and fair elections is the foundation of our democracy. And it's an honor as your district attorney to be able to work with folks like these who uncover the truth, regardless of how long it takes, pursue it to the end, and bring individuals trying to perpetrate fraud during our free elections on the public to justice. I'm really proud of Stuart, Paula Hartman, and others involved in our Public Corruption Division. I appreciate the assistance of the Texas Rangers and the good work done. And I want the public to know, while it's been just about a year since those crimes occurred or began to occur, it's not TV justice that you get in real life. It takes a while. Everything from gathering the evidence to not downloading, but cracking the evidence, that's what we do with phones, to tying people together through search warrants and evidence obtained through search warrants. But because of the diligence of the prosecutors and the investigator with the Texas Rangers, we're able to give the public the truth today and bring these individuals to the justice that they deserve.
Is this all Democrats? Is this all Democrats versus Democrats? Is this new Republicans involved? Is this a single party, essentially?
This is, we know that, I can't tell you how people vote, but I can tell you that Bonton was a Democratic candidate, that Natasha Deming, who posed as Ruiz, ran as a Democratic candidate, and that Damian Jones is generally consulting on the Democratic side. But I will tell you that the crime of election fraud is nonpartisan, and our prosecution is nonpartisan. And while this is the end of today's news, I think that the public can expect more to come.
What did Damian allegedly text you?
He texted her a threat to expose her in an embarrassing way, accusing her of something that he suggested would then cause her to lose the election.
And this was done in the general election?
It was done prior to the filing for the primary to obtain the nomination, December 2nd, 2019.
2019. Okay.
A year ago.
I see. And then the Deming and Bonton, what are they? Have they been arrested, or are you just?
No, their attorneys have been notified to surrender them. Representative Dutton's been alerted. The members of the Texas legislature and the delegation, the Harris County delegation that asked us to investigate, some of them have been contacted, just that there would be this announcement today.
And how do you respond to the fact that there was a letter sent out, I guess, a couple months ago saying, there was the members of the delegation, I guess, sent out a letter a couple months ago saying, hey, there was, hope you guys act on this and things like that. And was it frustrating not being able to respond to that right away, knowing that that you guys were investigating? Well,
it's not frustrating for me, but I think the public needs to know this is not TV justice. We can't investigate, get the evidence, and solve a case before we run through all the procedural protections that are required for people under investigation. So we did that. And yes, I think when we don't communicate with legislators in a very specific way, it can be frustrating, but I believe that our fellow elected officials trust this office to be thorough and to be right. And what we don't promise is fast, we promise correct.
DA, you had an interesting statement a moment ago. You indicated that there's more to come. Are you referring to this case, or are you saying to other cases?
I'm referring to other cases.
Referring to other cases. Let's focus on these cases. With regards to the charges, from what I gather, please clarify, only one felony among the 3 candidates in terms of charges. Is that correct?
That's what the law states that the crime is. But yes, you've got a plethora of Class A misdemeanors, all carry up to a year in jail and a $4,000 fine. And then you've got a state jail felony against Bonton.
I don't know, maybe...
Actually, against Bonton and against Deming. I think there's 2. There's 3?
2 against Deming.
Let me let Stuart answer that question.
I don't know if you want him to answer this question or yourself. These were document cases. The evidence was in the documents. You had them. In terms of someone writing that they aren't the person that who they are. They're called document cases. And people that I talk to, I don't know how you interpret them. Was this an easier case to build because of the fact you had it in writing and everything was written there?
Well, not all the evidence is in these documents, Mario. The evidence that identifies who the writers are, the true writers, who filed these papers. The papers, the documents that are required to run for elected office are designed to ensure that candidates are transparent, that we are who we say we are, and that you can check up on us, you can learn about us. By intentionally circumventing the process that's designed to make elections safe, that's election fraud. And election fraud is a Class A. But I think what's important to the public is that they know people will be held accountable. I think it's important to other candidates. I think it's important to us all to know that when people cross the line, this isn't dirty politics, this is a crime.
Was Representative, you indicated you spoke to Representative Dunn, was he surprised about these indictments?
No, he wasn't surprised. He didn't act surprised. You'll have to ask him. But I mean, I think, you know, I saw his interview with you. I think everybody understands that these cases take time and that you can't make a case generally just with a document alone. You have to show who did it, who filed it, why did they do it, who else did they communicate with. I also think it's important for the public to know that when you're looking at evidence like phones, that Apple and the proprietary problems in cracking Apple phones is a challenge for prosecutors nationwide. That's why we're seeking legislation to overturn that. But all of this put together, I'm really proud of our team, and I'm proud that they got to the truth.
With regards to actually identify, in the case of the 142, okay, let's look at that case. I know you have the Kalani case out there. But in the case of the 142, you had somebody that went before the Democratic Party and signed the document that said this is the case. Should there be a better system in place for oversight by the parties themselves to say, hey, because it took your office, the taxpayers' dollars, to identify that this was a fake candidate. Should this be done at the party level?
Well, the party isn't in a position to investigate like the DA's office or police officers are. And there were intentional deceptions committed at the party level by Natasha Deming, who presented herself as Ruiz. And so there was no indication that anybody in the party was to blame, but can there be better safeguards? Sure, there can always be better safeguards in the electoral process, and there can be stronger laws. I would like to clarify the number of felonies, the number of misdemeanors, and I'd like to ask Stuart to do that. Stuart?
Hello, my name is Stuart Talashay. I'm a prosecutor in the Public Corruption Division here. As far as the charges go, there are 3 felonies. Richard Bonton is charged with 1 felony of tampering with government record, and Natasha Deming is charged with 2 felonies of tampering with government record. All of the other charges are Class A misdemeanors.
What's the jail time there on that, Mr. Talashay?
Up to,
potential jail time in these cases?
so it's going to be up to 2 years in a state jail and up to a $10,000 fine on the felonies, and up to 1 year in the Harris County Jail on the misdemeanors, and up to a $4,000 fine, or both.
And I assume you can't comment on other investigations that's ongoing?
That's correct.
We, Kim, the counsel at DA Hogg.
Sure.
There have been questions out there about other investigations that are out there. I mean, Channel 2 Investigates recently uncovered, the case with regards to Commissioner Rodney Ellis. Channel 2 Investigates recently uncovered an email where Commissioner Ellis indicated his artwork keeps him up at night. He needs to sign something to notarize to find out who is the real owner in this artwork. We just can't take more than just his word, meaning the gentleman at the center of this case as well, Sam. You had the Commissioner Ellis at that point stating this. Do you have any update with regards to this case? Because the public is wondering about what is happening with this case.
Let me tell you why we have no comment. When somebody's accused or investigated by the district attorney, it's impactful in their lives. While investigations are pending, there's no formal charge. There's nothing that is ready for public consumption, and it can be extraordinarily damaging to people. It can change elections, and it's important that the district attorney always consider the impact, the overall and larger impact of disclosing information before it's public. And so I just have made a policy of not doing it. Like the federal government, we will not affirm or deny investigations until we have a result. And we think that's out of fairness to all parties, including the accused.
Do you have any reaction to the Commissioner's email where he says, I'm not sure if Sam owns all the art. This keeps me up at night?
I do not have any comment. Ruben Perez is here to give the press conference and give this in Spanish. I'll ask him to step up. Ruben?
Sure.
If you want my notes, you got them. Okay.
Buenas tardes. Me llamo Rubén Pérez, soy fiscal del condado de Harris, trabajo por la fiscal Kim Hogg, soy jefe del Special Crimes Bureau y ahora estamos aquí para anunciar que un gran jurado acusó a 3 personas por una mañana en 2 diferentes planes que fueron intentados afectar el resultado en 2 carreras en la Casa de Representantes aquí en el estado de Texas durante las elecciones del 2020. Los distritos afectados fueron distrito número 132 y distrito número 142. Damian Jones fue acusado de coerción de un servidor público y llamadas calificadas de llamadas falsas. Acusamos a Damian Jones que mandó un texto anónimo, una amenaza a entonces la representante Gina Canali, en el esfuerzo de coercer a ella que renunciara a su posición en el distrito 132 en vez de correr otra vez para reelección. El amenaza fue hecho el diciembre 2, 2019, días antes de que fuera la fecha limitada para correr por esa posición. En vez de renunciar a su posición, Kalani reportó la amenaza a los Texas Rangers, trabajaron con nosotros, la División de Corrección Pública de aquí de la fiscal de Kim Hogg. Investigamos esa queja. Si Damian Jones es convictido de los 2 delitos menores, el rango de castigo está 1 año en la cárcel y una multa de $4,000. Días después, otro plan intentado para impactar la elección en 142, cuando una persona, Natasha Demings, usó el nombre falso de Natasha Ruiz para correr en contra de el representante Harold Dutton. Ella no hizo esto sola. Natasha Deming con Richard Bonton, otro candidato por Distrito 142, fue acusado hoy por fraude de elecciones. Bonton, que había corrido antes para el Distrito 142, conspiró con Deming en hacer la aplicación para correr en un número 142 en un nombre falso que era Natasha Ruiz. El motivo de esto fue para manipular los votantes y soportando un candidato latino para que le afectara la carrera de Harold Dutton, porque el distrito de él es una población latina. No trabajó este plan, pero sí tuvieron que correr otra vez Dutton y el otro candidato Jerry Davis. Por su rol, Bonton está encargado, pusimos cargos de manipulación de un archivo del gobierno, a una felonía de 2 años y 2 delitos menores, está 1 año en la penitencia. Por el rol de ella, Deming está acusada de 2 cuentas de manipulación de un archivo del gobierno, otros 2 felonías, delitos mayores y 3 delitos menores. Perujía, fraude de elección y conspiración de cometer manipulación de un archivo del gobierno. De 1 año en la penitencia y con eso le pusimos los cargos. Bien. Okay.
Okay, one last question about today's defense. Sure. These charges. Indictments, I should say.
Gracias, Ruben. Yes, Mario.
After today's indictments and the work of your public corruption unit in your office, what is the message you are sending to political candidates and officials in Harris County with today's charges?
The message that I want to send to fellow candidates and electeds is one that we all already know. Follow the law. Don't take an oath or run for an office to take an oath to do that and then break the law in trying to get there.
Your office is determined to prosecute those cases.
We are prosecuting those cases. More to come. Thank you all.